Hello and welcome back to Gray Matter. Today, we're diving into one of the biggest stories of our time, India's incredible transformation from a nation on the rise to a power that is actively shaping the global order. So how exactly is this happening? Let's get into it.
17%. Now, what does this number actually mean? Well, according to the IMF, that's the slice of all global economic growth that India is projected to contribute in the next 5 years. Just think about that. In a world where many major economies are slowing down, India is one of the primary engines keeping things moving. This isn't just about being big anymore. It's about having real, tangible global impact.
So, what's really fueling this economic beast? For decades, India's economy was known for being slow, heavily regulated, and state-controlled. How on earth did that system flip into one of the fastest growing on the planet? Well, the story starts with a massive crisis that forced a complete rethink. Before 1991, India's economy was caught in what was called the license raj, a tangled web of permits and regulations that basically choked off any real growth. But then, in 1991, disaster struck. The country's foreign reserves were almost wiped out. It was facing a severe balance of payments crisis. Essentially, India was running out of money to pay its bills to the world. It had no choice but to go to the IMF for an emergency loan. And the price for that loan? Radical, sweeping reforms. That single moment was the catalyst. It blew open the old system, opened India to the world, and kicked off decades of growth that we're still seeing today.
Now, what's so fascinating is how India grew. Most countries follow a pretty standard path. You move from an economy based on farms to one based on factories. But India kind of skipped that heavy industrialization step. As you can see from this chart of its gross value added, which is just a way to measure economic output, it leaped almost directly from an agricultural base to a service-led economy. Today, things like IT, finance, and outsourcing make up nearly 55% of its entire economy. It's a truly unique development model.
And that economic story runs right alongside another incredible transformation, one that was built from the ground up, right inside India. We're not just talking about services here. We're talking about a homegrown digital revolution that has absolutely supercharged the country's journey.
At the core of this revolution is something called the India Stack. Think of it as a set of public, open digital highways. It was built in 3 main layers. First, the foundation, Aadhaar, a biometric digital ID for over 1 billion people. For many, this was the first time they ever had a formal proof of identity. Then, built on top of that ID came the second layer, the Unified Payments Interface, or UPI. This made real-time digital payments completely seamless and available to pretty much everyone. And finally, the third layer, the Data Empowerment and Protection Architecture. This is a framework that lets people safely share their own data to access new services, like getting a loan or insurance. Each layer built on the one before it, creating this incredibly powerful digital ecosystem.
The sheer scale of this is just mind-boggling. Let this sink in for a moment. Today, almost 97% of the entire Indian population has a digital ID. This has unlocked financial and social inclusion on a massive scale, bringing hundreds of millions of people into the formal economy for the very first time. It is, quite simply, the biggest digital identity program anywhere on Earth.
And here's where it gets really interesting. This whole system, known as Digital Public Infrastructure, or DPI, isn't just a domestic success story. India is now actively exporting this model. It's offering a public, open-source blueprint for development. And that's a powerful alternative to the private, for-profit model you see from Silicon Valley or the state-controlled model coming out of Beijing. This has become a brand new and very powerful form of Indian soft power.
Okay, so we've got this rising economic and tech giant, but all this power doesn't exist in a bubble, right? It's the foundation for an increasingly confident and ambitious foreign policy. And as India's influence grows, it has to navigate a very tricky global stage, trying to be, as some have said, a friend to all.
The big idea, the guiding principle for India's foreign policy today is strategic autonomy. Now, this is really a modern update of its old Cold War policy of non-alignment. But in today's world, it's less about staying out of things and more about getting involved with everyone. It means engaging with multiple, often competing powers to advance India's own interests without getting locked into any single alliance. You might even call it multi-alignment.
And this slide, it shows you exactly what that balancing act looks like in real life. On one side, you have India as a core member of the Quad, a security group with the US, Japan, and Australia, largely seen as a counterbalance to China. But on the other side, India is a leading member of BRICS and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, groups where its main partners are its strategic rivals, China and Russia. By having a seat at both tables, India gives itself incredible diplomatic flexibility.
All right, so let's zoom in a bit. Where is all of this playing out? Well, the main stage is the Indo-Pacific. This massive maritime region is now the economic center of the world, and India sees itself as a fulcrum, a key stabilizing power in a very contested area.
And India's playbook for this region is captured in what it calls the Mahasagar Doctrine. The name itself is an acronym that stands for Mutual Advancement for Security and Growth Across Regions. But what it really means is that India wants to be the go-to country in a crisis, the first responder and the main security provider, all while promoting an international order based on rules, not force.
And look, this isn't just talk. We're seeing this doctrine in action. You've got the Malabar naval exercises, which are all about building deep military coordination with partners like the U.S. Navy. Then there's the Indo-Pacific Oceans Initiative, which is more on the diplomatic side, trying to get everyone on the same page about maritime security. And through its Sagar vision, India is providing direct help and development aid to its smaller neighbors. These are all real, tangible steps towards becoming that regional anchor of stability.
So, when we put all these pieces together, the economy, the technology, the foreign policy, what does India's next chapter look like? Well, its path forward is really defined by a fascinating paradox, a series of incredible strengths that exist right alongside some very significant challenges. On the one hand, you have these massive advantages. It has the world's largest and youngest population, a huge demographic dividend. It has this world-leading digital infrastructure, and it has one of the fastest-growing major economies on Earth. But on the other hand, the constraints are just as real. Its GDP per person is still quite low, which means there are huge domestic development needs. It faces a serious ongoing rivalry with China, and as its power grows, so does the pressure from other world powers to pick a side. This is the central puzzle of modern India.
And that brings us to the big final question. For years, India has been a master at balancing competing interests. But as its economic and strategic weight in the world continues to grow, the pressure to make a choice will only get stronger. Can it keep up this delicate act of multi-alignment, or will the world eventually force it to pick a side? That really is the great question facing India on its journey as a global shaping power. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more such interesting content.